In this video, I'm going to talk about how to build a property portfolio. I've been in the game over 12 years and have had thousands of Aussies actually do it themselves. And of course, I learned how to do it myself by watching and helping them. I'm going to cover the whole process, strategy, and how to execute building a property portfolio in 2023. Keep on watching. So what I want to go through today is how to build a property portfolio. Why property? There's other obviously things you can invest in, shares and so on. Why property? Then from there, we're going to talk about properties which are high capital growth versus high rental yield. Let's talk about it. Then let's now talk about when to buy. Is now a good time or should we wait? And then of course, I want to finish off with nailing your strategy. The things you got to think about, timeline, what it looks like, visualizing your version of success, and then how to execute your strategy. I'm George Samios. Let's build mad wealth through property. Okay, first step, why property? Why should I be investing in property and not putting it into shares? Well, look, let's be real clear. You got to pick what you're passionate about and you got to stick to your lane. You don't want to get caught out. So if you like shares, I'm not the guy. But if you like property, keep on watching. I like that I understand everyone needs a house. I understand, aka residential. I understand that a business needs a place to operate, to people to come in, for them to hold stock, for them to actually do business, aka commercial property. So I understand the little economics of how residential and commercial property happen, and I believe in them 100%. I believe people always need to live in houses, and I believe people always need to operate a business from a premises. So I love the strategy. I love how it all works. Side note, I can talk with experience because I own residential properties and commercial properties, and I can't wait to show you later on in this clip exactly the difference between both of them, the pros and cons, which really ties in with capital growth versus cash flow. So before moving on, just understand your lane and where you want to be. Do you want to be really conservative and put money into term deposits in banks? Do you want to be the person who puts money in shares? Or do you want to be the property investor? Okay, number 2 is how to use home equity to actually start building your property portfolio. Let me show you how exactly to use home equity. Let's run this scenario that you own a house. Okay, it's called your owner-occupied house. And let's say it's worth, for argument's sake, $1.5 million. Now let's say that your home loan on this particular property is 900 grand. This means that your current loan to value ratio, by the way to work that out is you get your loan and you divide it by the value of your property, which in this circumstance, the LVR would be 60%. So this particular scenario, this person has a $1.5 million house, the loan is 900 grand, their LVR is 60%. How do I use the equity in this property, okay, to buy more properties? Well, first things first, you can go up to 80% value of your property. Now, 80% of 1.5 million is 1.2 million. 1.2 million minus this current loan of 900 grand shows us exactly how much equity we can use. Now, in this scenario, that's 300 grand. We have got 300 grand sitting in this house that we can use to buy another property. For example, let's say that we want to buy an old house in Coorparoo for investment for $1.2 million. Now, when I buy a property in Queensland for $1.2 million, there's probably going to be, I reckon, worst case, 60 grand worth of buying fees, stamp duty, lawyers, building and pest, and so on. That means we're going to need $1.26 million to buy that investment property. Now, it's real clear. If you still got a housing loan on your house, which in this scenario we do, they still owe 900 grand, you're probably going to want to borrow 100% plus fees on the investment property. I'll let you talk to your professionals, aka your accountants and financial planners, to get advice on this. But for this example, that's what we want to do. So how do I borrow 100% plus fees being 1.26 million? This is how the bank works it out, gang. Assets, liabilities, okay? My house, my owner-occupied house, is worth 1.5 million, and we know the loan is 900 grand. Now I want to buy an investment property in Coorparoo for 1.2 million, and I want to borrow 1.26 million to actually borrow 100% plus the buying associated fees. Now that means my total properties is going to be worth $2.7 million. My total loan secured by these two properties will be $2.16 million. Gang, if you divide the loan by the asset, that shows an 80% LVR, which is the sweet spot with the banks. And that's how you use your property to borrow 100% plus fees for an investment property. Now, let me show you the exciting part of property investment. Now I've got two properties worth $2.7 million. Let's say the market went up 10% this year. Guys, you just made 270 grand from your property. How hard is it to save 270 grand? Let's say the property market went up a 30%, which it has done over the last couple of years. That's over 800 grand capital growth in a year, which is what Brisbane experienced. Now let's say you've got multiple properties, okay, because you've been doing this for a while. And let's just hypothetically say that your properties are worth $10 million and the property market went up 30%. Guys, how can you save $3 million in a year? That is the exciting part of property investment.
George, what happens if the property goes down? Like, how do you safeguard yourself?
Look, there's risk in everything, mate. When you get in your car, there's a risk that you're going to die in a car accident. There is always going to be risk in every single possible thing. Properties go in cycles, and we did a great video with Michael Yardney not so long ago, understanding about where we are in the cycle. But you got to look long-term with property. You can't look at property as a 12-month game. It has to be a long-term strategy. And history, if you look back, every 7 to 10 years, we seem to double, all right? Mm-hmm. Our population is increasing. Think about it. A McDonald's 30-cent cone now is 85 cents. The cost of everything. When I used to speak to my grandfather when he used to buy properties, he wanted to buy this property in Gumdale as a service station, and he regrets not buying it. He goes, I wanted to spend $10,000 and it sold for $12,000. This is the service station in Gumdale. I know that he bought a lot of his properties between $30,000 and $40,000, which is unfathomable how much property used to cost back then, but the wages aren't what they are. But all I can say is long term, from doing this for so many years, property prices continue to go up, but so does incomes, and it's all relative. When you start buying more properties, you got to be smart and you got to have a financial planner involved, understanding your whole situation. Like, I have got a lot of debt and my wife doesn't work. If something happens to me, game over. So you got to have the right insurances in place to make sure, if God forbid something was to happen to me, all my affairs are looked after. So you got to have a bit of a plan in your will, but also the right insurances, aka life, trauma, TPD, and a financial planner is the right person to speak to get your affairs in order, because it's great to have a strategy to build wealth, but you got to have a just-in-case strategy. And remember, gang, everyone's different. You guys aren't me and I'm not you. We're all different. That's why the world goes around. You need to talk to a planner. We're going to get into the strategy at the end of the video, knowing what that big, bold vision is of yours and how to execute. But it's real clear to know that I'm not giving you specifically right now personal advice. This is just my journey. All right, gang, now let's talk about capital growth versus cash flow, or rental yield. And I'm going to really tie this in with residential property or commercial property, and I can comment with experience because I have both of them. But I want you to be clear what your version of success is. What is your strategy? Because your strategy could be buying residential properties now and then getting the beautiful capital growth that you get with residential and using that to get into commercial, and then you can offload your residential properties. Now look, I only said that because that's what I did. I knew that I wanted to end up with commercial properties, and why I wanted to end up with commercial properties is they have really long leases. I mean, some commercial properties, for example, a childcare centre or a service station, you actually get 15-year leases with annual CPI increases of 3 to 3.5%. Without doing anything, it just goes up. And traditionally, these are pretty good, solid properties where they just pay you. All you got to do is get the invoice and change it to 7-Eleven or change it to Freedom. Change the invoice number, bang, they pay you the next day. With residential, yes, you get great capital growth, which is probably what a lot of you watching this need. When you're young, you haven't got much behind you, and getting a loan for residential is much easier than commercial. So it traditionally is a nice barrier to start building your property portfolio by buying residential properties. And like I showed you before, when you have a few of these and they go up in value, you have a lot of equity. And with a lot of equity, you can then buy commercial properties. So cash flow versus capital growth, I believe it also does come down to the type of property that you want to get. But to talk about that, you really got to sit with professionals and work out what is your big bold goal, what is your version of success, and then actually have a strategy and how to execute, which is a segue into our last point, strategy and execution, and all the different people you need to get involved to actually make this happen for you. So what I recommend is you go see a mortgage broker or financial planner who specialize in doing what I've just done in this whole video. You don't want to go to a bank or a broker that hasn't got a property portfolio themselves, because how are they going to help you? For example, let's say you're with one of the major banks and you want to buy your first investment property and you think your house is worth 1.5 and they say it's worth 1.2 and they just kill your dream. You got no equity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Really sorry, you can't do anything. That's not good enough, guys. When you come to someone like me who is doing what I'm saying, I'll order 3 valuations straight away, and I promise you someone will come in at 800 grand, 1.2 and 1.6. And if 1.6 gets you the investment property, the rates become pretty secondary, and let's start our property investment journey. I've moved banks quite a few times because of my equity situation looks better to others at different points of time. It's a bit of a luck of the draw, to be honest with you. But regardless, I always had a very clear strategy of what I looked like when I was 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. I knew what I wanted to look like on paper in financial goals I'm talking about, and I worked backwards. And that's why, like I said before, I started with residential first, and I bought quite a few residential properties. And as they went up in value, I started my journey in commercial properties. And I love the commercial properties. So guys, who you need to see, what you need to do to make this happen. Go to a financial planner, mortgage broker, accountant, and lawyer. These people need to be all about property investment, and even a buyer's agent, by the way, can tie in there. If you aren't passionate about property but you believe in the process and what it does, but you don't want to be at realestate.com and learning, there are specific commercial and residential buyer's agents who we have contacts for who can help you make all this happen for you. Guys, I'm completely biased. I'm a mortgage broker and property investor myself. If you don't know anyone, please reach out. My team would love to help you with your property portfolio goals and dreams. And we also do financial planning and the mortgage broking and commercial lending all here at MAD. And for those first home buyers who haven't even got a property yet, don't know where to start, please watch this video where I explain everything about what you need to do to get into the first property. Have a mad day, and I'll see you next time. And guys, let's say you're not ready yet, but you want to keep on learning, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and continue watching, because I've got heaps more stuff to cover.